If you picture an island, most business owners feel like that's where they are. Just doing everything all by themselves, and they're dragging around the driftwood into the shape of an SOS, which stands for stressed out, overwhelmed, and stuck. Most of us are stuck or at a block because of our mindsets. My work with my clients is to help them discover the kind of the root cause of those blocks.
Hey guys, this is the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. My name is Rick Meekens. I'm going to be your host. And today in the studio, we have Kyle Gillette. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rick. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Dude, I have been looking forward to this show. I think when we talked earlier, I talked a little about NLP and that stuff. And I know that you were the man. No pressure.
No pressure.
But I'm looking forward to having the conversation. So our audience obviously doesn't know you. So you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yep. Kyle Gillette, and I'm not related to the Razor Company.
If I was, that was my second question. Oh, man.
Yep, Gillette. I grew up on an orange farm in the Central Valley of California and worked for my dad from when I was 7th grade all the way through high school, and then went off to college, did that thing, and ended up in a men's mentoring program. And I worked there for 9.5 years, kind of fell in love with mentoring and coaching at that time, but didn't really know that I had. It was just something I was doing, but I didn't realize how much I enjoyed it until I wasn't doing it. And then I kind of got exposed again to it in the professional world, right? So mentoring 18 to 25-year-olds is one thing, and all the skills I learned there are actually completely transferable. But there's another set of skills to know when it comes to coaching and mentoring in the business world. So I ended up committing to doing that in 2018. So it'll be 6 years that I've been in business now. And I don't know what else I would do. I don't know if there's any other option for me. So
it sounds like it's a passion or business for you, so to speak.
Yeah, I was driving home from a networking event, probably in 2020, maybe 2019. And I was in the middle of trying to figure out, okay, what is the mission that I have for my business? And so I was praying and I was thinking about it, and I was listening to a book, and the book was talking about you should have a vision or you should have a mission for your life or for your business. And so I'd been struggling with coming up with that. And so I turned off the audio and I'm like, what is it? What is this mission? What is this vision? Because I'd been praying about it and journaling about it and thinking about it for months, but nothing was coming. And then I heard to help thousands of business owners shift their mindsets and habits so that God could transform their hearts, or so they could become the leaders they're meant to be. And that was it. I went, okay, cool. I can get behind that. And so the rest of the drive home, I was crying because it was so powerful to me. It was so meaningful to me. And then since that day, I've been pursuing that mission full bore.
Awesome. How does the book fall into? Did the book come right afterwards, or was it?
Yeah, I think it was probably 2 years later before I started to write the book. And I had a lot of different experiences in between as it relates to learning about mindsets, learning about habits that are in the way of business owners or that they need to apply. And so as they started to come together, I started to write the book in kind of blog form in little snippets. And then I went, wait, I think I might have something here. And so then I went into it full time in terms of focus, and ended up writing the first draft in 3 months. And then, it took a while to get it looking good and sounding good ultimately. And that was before AI became something that you could use real easily to write. So it was a genuine writing experience.
Wow. That's awesome. So one of the things that you talk about is helping business owners that are, I guess, overwhelmed, that are I don't know. I guess the issue we have is just being just so overwhelmed with the work and the drive and the vision, all that good stuff. And you help business owners with that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I describe it like being on an island. And if you picture an island, most business owners feel like that's where they are, right? Especially men in business, because that's typically my primary target, is focusing on men in business, especially men of faith. And they feel like they're on an island. They're just doing everything all by themselves, and they're dragging around the driftwood into the shape of an SOS, which stands for stressed out, overwhelmed, and stuck, right? And so how do I help them? Well, I help them, first of all, by helping them to see the mindsets that might be out of whack, right? Most of us are stuck, or we're at a block because of our mindsets. It's not that you can't get the leads you want to get. It's not that you can't be a great public speaker. It's not that you can't deliver better for the clients and customers you're serving. It's that your mind is getting in the way of that. And so my work with my clients is to help them discover the kind of the root cause of those blocks, dive into those, help them to release them, to let them go, to let go of all that baggage that's really dragging them back. The metaphor is like when people go on diets, they'll lose the weight, right? You let's say you want to go on a diet and you want to lose 20, 30 pounds. You lose the weight, you're feeling great, and then you fast forward 6 months and the weight's back. This is what happens in business. We make our adjustments, we shift, we're moving forward, things are seemingly going well, and then all of a sudden, 3, 4 months later, we're kind of back to where we started. And it's because we never dealt with the root cause of the problem, of our mindsets and our attitudes that aren't quite right, the emotions and the limiting beliefs that are in the way. So I walk my clients through a process over the course. It's a 12-week program, but over the course of really just 8 hours, I walk them through the process, get rid of those limiting beliefs, get rid of that baggage, and they let it go. And then they can move forward without having to go back, right? They're done with that rubber band effect.
Give me an example of limiting beliefs and like how that manifests in a business owner.
Yeah, I was in a mastermind today, and one of the people in the group was talking about how he's really good in business. Like, he's sold a few businesses. He's been very successful in business, but he just can't do public speaking, or so he says. And that's a great example of it. And the language behind what he said was really revealing. There was the language of I can't, or I'm not good at, or whatever language that we say. It's that really limiting language, so which creates that limiting belief. Because if I say things repeatedly to myself, like, you're a pain in my neck, or this is really hard, whatever the thing is, it's going to become hard, or that person will literally create a pain in your neck because you're telling your brain to do that. So over the course of time, he said he's not good at public speaking, or it makes him nervous. The exact words, what did he say? He said, it makes me want to throw up, basically. And so when he goes to think about public speaking, his mind goes, oh, you're supposed to throw up or think about throwing up when you're going to do public speaking. It's amazing in its own right that we can do that with our unconscious mind, but unfortunately it can be used. We use it against ourselves with our self-talk.
So how do we? So if that's the case, how do we make that work? The opposite way, you know what I'm saying? So I've got a belief that I can, X, Y, Z. I mean, how does that, is it possible for that to manifest?
Yes. Yeah. So people talk about, affirmations, and that stuff's important. But if you don't let go of the trash, right, it's still going to be stinky. Your affirmation is not going to work very well because it's still going to be stinky. And so you got to let go of the head trash, whatever is in the way, which is those limiting beliefs and those negative, emotions. Let go of those. The way to do it in a very practical sense is we have to get ourselves separated from the situation. We have to disassociate, or said differently, you have to see the experience like you're watching a movie. So if I'm struggling, and you're in the movie, you're watching yourself in a movie. If I'm struggling with, let's say, generating leads for my business, well, there's a mindset problem there, because the system part of it's not hard. You just talk to people. It's not hard. But people struggle with generating leads all the time because of a mindset issue. So then what do? Well, I got to separate myself from it. And you do that there's a couple ways, but one of them is you can simply just journal. You can go, okay, I'm struggling with ABC, or in this case, I'm struggling with generating leads. Write it out, and then look at the problem. Now you're from a third perspective, or a second perspective on it. You're not in it necessarily. So now you're disassociated with it, and you can go, what are my emotions tied to this particular struggle? Leads in this case, or maybe it's some other struggle. You go, well, it makes me angry or it makes me frustrated. Well, what is the lesson to learn from that frustration, from that anger? You learn that lesson, and then you're able to let go of the anger, the frustration, which will allow you to not have struggles with that lead generation, because you're seeing the problem from outside of yourself. That's the main thing that is important to do.
So you're just kind of reprogramming your mind, or getting
100%.
your mind to think, to view the problem from a different perspective.
Yep.
And then perhaps convince yourself or convince your subconscious of that, it's not really a problem, or it's, whatever. That's interesting. How does this relate to?
So let me give you the sorry to interrupt, but let me give you the second step. So you do that. So now that you've seen what's happening there, and you understand the emotions behind it or limiting beliefs behind it, you've separated yourself from it. You learn the lesson, but now you go forward and you go, okay, I've learned my lesson about this. I know that I can generate leads. I'm just like hung up because I fear rejection, or I fear getting no's, or whatever it is. And you go, it's okay if I get a no. And then you make peace with whatever the struggle is. But then you go forward and you go, okay, the next time that I need to generate leads for my business or go on the stage or whatever, what is the outcome that's the ideal outcome that you want? Okay, so, well, at the end of my speech, I'm getting, people are applauding, they're clapping for me. They had a great experience. People learned a ton from me. Or at the end of my sales call, the person wants to buy, or they did buy, whatever. You start to project the success of that event, right? So before you even experience the event, you project the success of it. Now, it's not always going to work that way. I get it, but you're telling your mind, this is what you want your mind to create for you. And so you show up to that speaking engagement. You show up to that sales conversation with your mind knowing that it's supposed to be a success. So it will do everything in its power to make that possible for you. So you put those two together, you release the trash, the stink's gone, and now you get to create this beautiful future.
Yeah. Yeah. How does that, so what happens, when that doesn't happen, when you get, those rejections, kind of that almost like that self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, what kind of damage does that do?
Where you begin to believe that it's not going to work out? Is that what you're saying?
You went through this process, and then you see, yourself in front of your audience and they're applauding, blah, blah, blah. Then you go out into the real world and then suddenly, it's not manifesting itself the way that you envisioned.
Yep. I think what's great about that is it's feedback, right? It's not a failure, it's feedback. There is no failure, there's only feedback. Okay. So because this happens for me, right? I picture a future about my business or about a conversation or whatever that doesn't pan out. But so there's a lesson in that for me to learn, because I intended the right things and I intended to have a great outcome, but something was missed. So it's either I messed up in the midst of it all and I can learn from that, or before anything even happened, I didn't prepare very well. But either way, I get to learn that lesson, and I'm in that good headspace that says I'm not a failure. I don't suck. I'm not good at this. I don't have that mindset anymore because I've let go of that. So now I can actually learn the lesson in real time too, and quickly, and then apply that to the next situation. Because it's not, you're right. We're not going to always have that success. It's not, if we could, then everybody would do what I'm talking about and it would work every time.
Yeah. Interesting. So is this in the same neighborhood, I guess, with like the law of attraction?
I'm not super familiar with the law of attraction.
Okay.
But this is tied to neuro-linguistic programming, and just the things that we say to ourselves and the way that we say that them programs our brain to produce a specific result for us.
Yeah. Okay, cool. As a business owner, you mentioned earlier that you target Christian business owners. What attracts you to that, or why do you focus on that particular group?
Yeah, when I was in the men's mentoring program, it was a Christian-based program, and one of the things that stood out to me quite a bit was the guys that came in there always had some sort of a family circumstance that just wasn't very healthy. there was almost no exception to that rule. I saw over 150, maybe it was closer to 200 guys go through the program, right? And almost to every single, I can't think of an exception, but I'll say almost every single case that was the problem. There was some sort of a family dynamic that was just rough, and that turned into the guys turning to various addictions, various things instead. You know, it could be anything from video games and porn to drugs and alcohol, right? Okay. So once they started to get cared for and heard and listened to and loved on by myself and the other people in the program, they changed almost instantly once they accepted that, right? Now, what the heck does that have to do with business? Well, what it has to do with business and why I focus on the real deep intentional part of what I'm doing is if my client is leading a team of, let's just say 5 people, okay, and there's 3 guys and 2 women on the team, and the leader of the organization is really not in a good place because they're blocked for whatever reasons. They have emotional hangups for whatever reasons. The reasons don't really matter, but they're hung up. If that person, that leader doesn't let go of that stuff, it trickles down. And if it trickles down into those 5 employees, then they, to whatever degree, sometimes a lot and sometimes little, because we all talk about bosses. If you've ever had a boss, we talk about, man, he frustrated me or she did this, and it impacts the whole entire family. I have a bad day because my boss is not good to me or whatever. I have a conversation with my wife and she says something that irritates me. Well, I'm already partially irritated because of my experience with my boss, right? And then that trickles down to my kids and so on. Flip the switch, flip the script. I help that client do a wonderful job as a leader. Now, when the people go home from work, they're in a good space. They've had someone that's led them well. So then they lead well also, or it's more likely that they'll lead well, right? So there is a literal generational effect that ministry that I was a part of had on those guys' lives. They have, some of them have kids now, and they're doing a good job with their parenting. They're doing a good job with their spouse. I want that type of generational effect more immediately as it relates to the people that my clients are leading. They go home to their family and they do a good job with their kids because they're in a good mood. They have a good attitude. They're being led well. And that is hugely impactful in my opinion. So that's where it comes from.
Okay. Cool. You have your book and your firm, obviously, B.L.U.E shirt. And B.L.U E is an acronym that you use. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So B.L.U E stands for 4 pillars. And the B is be a self-aware leader. And so this is the emotional intelligence side of things. And then L is lead with accountability, which pretty straightforward. Accountability, when I talk about it, isn't necessarily ethics. It is that, but it's more about follow through and helping your team to be empowered and to be accountable. And then the U is use a growth mindset. And then the E is empower others. So you put those 4 together. And if you look at any successful leader, they have all 4 of those pillars in spades.
Yeah. So what does a turnaround look like? You know, you have somebody that comes into the program, like you were describing before, you know, they've got, different situations in their lives that are proving to be challenging for them. They're, some of this is like leaking into their business, enabling or disabling them from being the level of leader, that they potentially could be. I mean, what is that transition like, from, walking into the program to leaving the program or transitioning to a different program that you're offering?
Yeah. So within the first 2 months, the client will go through the process of dealing with whatever the blocks are, right? So really it's within the first week that we do all that work, and it takes 8 hours and they let go of whatever's in the way. Then within the next basically 2 months of time they're able then to take this new clarity of mind to move forward with really confidence and with an understanding of now who they really are as a leader, because all the mind blocks are out of the way. So we deal with the leadership side first. right? Those first really 8 to 12 weeks, we're dealing with that. They get that self-awareness. They create this internal accountability. Now that you have that, because as leaders, they are much more self-aware. And I'll give you an example of a client in a minute. They're much more aware of who they are, and they're also much more accountable. Automatically growth happens for them. Like they are personally going to be growing. Their leadership grows. It's automatic. It's inevitable. But because they're growing, their business grows, period. It's just what happens. And then the rest of the time is about business systems and empowering the team, because most business leaders don't do that great a job of empowering their team. And I teach them a 5-step process to empower their team to the point where their team owns things, and they let go. They, being the leader, lets go of about 80% of their responsibility. Now that takes a lot longer than just 3 months or whatever, but they're letting go of 80% of their responsibility and delegating it off to other people. Because why did you hire people in the first place? Right? to do the work that you don't want to do work better than you can do. That's the point of hiring people. And so I help them to make that possible. So I'll give you an example. I'm working with this lady that runs 2 different schools, and it's an art school. We started working together, and she had 3 bad employees. They're just bad. She hired poorly, or they kind of pivoted and became bad employees, right? So that was one of her problems. Her other problem was she did not delegate. The teachers taught, but if there was a problem, she did the work of it, or she might have had someone else join in on her with it. But she's like the college student at school that's like, I'll just do it anyway because nobody else does as good of a job, right? So that was her method. Additionally, she's from New York, and so she's hard driving, super direct, and her communication was kind of rough around the edges. Okay, that's fine. Great. Let's deal with this. So we went through the process of helping her become more self-aware, letting go of whatever baggage was holding her back, and then learned how to create some accountability for herself and her team, and then ultimately empower her team. Okay, so what did that turn into? Well, the people that were bad apples were terminated. And I think there was a third that self-selected out because things were changing in the organization. She's come to the point where it's rare that she needs to really even involve herself in any sort of the problems. If there's a problem, people come to her, they'll tell her about the situation. She'll simply ask, well, what do you think? Which is a question I taught her to use. What do you think? And they give an answer, and then she'd be like, go ahead. They go and do it. It solves the problem. And then she goes back to the work that she needs to be doing. Now we're pivoting more towards that 20%, which is what is the 20% that is the most important work for her to do? Because ultimately she wants to become a consultant for people that want to open private schools like this. So she went from really being a bit of a head case for herself, from her own, admission, to having 2 locations that are super stable, teams that are synergized like crazy. We just had a great conversation about that this week or last week. And now considering a consulting business and opening a 3rd location.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's a big deal.
Huge. Yeah. Wow. How does she react? I mean, looking at, the before and the now, I mean, that's gotta be, mind blowing. I mean, did she expect this, or is this something that, as her mindset changed, she saw new opportunities? Or
yeah, she's very grateful. She's grateful. She's grateful to me, but she's really grateful for like her own pivots and changes within herself, and then really, really grateful for her team, right? Because she's recognized a lot of what happens when I'm working with my clients is they recognize the value of the people around them, like how amazing those people are, just that they are brilliant. And they have powerful insights and really amazing, innovative ideas to share. And so she's recognized that and learned how to leverage that. And it's paying forward even to her personal life as well. So I think for the most part, she's seen that this trend is going to continue for her. And so she has a much higher expectations for her life, not just for her business, but for her life and what's possible.
That's amazing. That's amazing. That's amazing. How did you get to the point? I mean, it's one thing to, mentor, folks, in one environment, but I mean, you're 6 years in, you've got a book, you've got podcasts, you've got, a number of things that are happening or that you're doing. I mean, how do you go from, where you were to where you are today? And then it sounds as though you've got some other things that you want to do in the future as well.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to have really good mentorship my entire life. So my dad was a great mentor, and I got to experience that for 18 straight years, basically. Right. And then I went to college and I sought out mentorship there as well. And I got mentoring from older upperclassmen. Right. So I was mentored for 3 years by an upperclassman. Then I started to mentor at that time too. While I was in college, I was a second year and I started mentoring a freshman. And I mentored him for, I think it was 2 years. And then I was mentored in that program that was a mentorship program by a gentleman that he told me one day, he had run 30 businesses. He retired in his 50s, and he mentored me every Tuesday at lunch for 9.5 years. Right. So I got the wisdom of a 50 something to a 70 something, or not 70, excuse me, a 60 something to a 70 something while I was there. Right. From him. As he aged, I got all that mentorship and the business side of it too, which is wonderful. And then I moved up here and I got locked in with another mentor, and I'm still connected with him. And I've been connected with him for, I think, 3 years now. So I don't have it figured out. That's for darn sure. Right? But these mentors have a lot of stuff figured out that they paid forward to me. Plus, I've been receiving coaching along the way in a lot of different areas of life. And then I've also taken a lot of courses and classes and then messed up a ton. I've run 4 businesses, my own businesses, and 2 of them failed. And so that was in the window of being mentored. And in those failures, I probably learned more in those. It was like a 1.5 year long time period in total. And I learned a ton through those failures that I've been able to use in this business now.
Wow. What was that like, for you? You feel like you've, you have the mentors in place, et cetera, et cetera. It's just like, okay, I'm, firing on all cylinders, so to speak. And then you discover that you have a business that's, not sustainable, that you got to walk away from.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and especially in retrospect, it was because I had a lot of fears and I had I didn't do the things that I knew I was supposed to do. I knew what to do, but I was afraid to do it. I didn't have the confidence. I didn't have the perspective. I ended up, I'll tell you a quick story. So I ran a personal training business while I was still in California. And that one was really successful, worked out great. Solo business, supported myself. It was great. Then we moved up here and I tried to do an online personal training business, which would have been freaking brilliant because it's a big deal now. People are doing that like crazy now and it's working out. My intention was to connect with people, do like a one-to-one conversation with them, learn about what their wants and needs are, and then design a program for them, design a workout program for them, and then do check-ins with them, right? So accountability partner that designs a program that's tailored specifically to the person. Great. I hired someone to create the website. The website looked great. I started writing blog posts. I started coming up with more content and the way to deliver everything, but I didn't reach out to people. I was afraid to do the real work of reaching out to try to make the sales. And so of course it failed, right? But it was here. That was my problem. I actually had a brilliant idea, really, because this was at least 8 years ago. So I would have been at the front end of that wave. It would have been killer. It didn't work out. It is what it is. But I learned a ton along the way.
Well, what were some big lessons that you learned from that? I mean, besides get out of your own way, it sounds like.
you do have to get out of your own way, right? But people aren't that scary. And a no isn't that scary. That's fundamentally the biggest 2 lessons that I got from that experience and the next one as well. People really aren't as scary as I project them out to be in my mind. And the thing is, just like I was saying before, if I expect success, then my brain programs me to create that success. If I expect that people are going to be scary, then my brain programs me to experience people in a scary way. Well, that's what I did to myself. And so now I've programmed myself to expect people to be amazing and intelligent and great to be around. Does that mean they're going to automatically become a client? No. But the experience is completely different and the motivation is completely different too, right? It's way easier to stay motivated when you have that perspective on the people you're interacting with and the no's that you get.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. I love that. What inspires you these days?
That vision still does.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what I shared with you about helping thousands of business owners, and it's the legacy part. To me, if I get to coach these business owners that are movers and shakers. I mean, business owners change our world. I mean, you just think about the things that have been created thanks to the businesses around us. I wouldn't have this mic, this monitor, the keyboard, whatever. All that stuff wouldn't exist if it weren't for small business owners that got things going, which is wonderful. But a lot of the time, those small business owners, especially men, make their family pay a price, which often turns into broken families, which then turns into kids that break their families, which turns into generations of brokenness. And there's a lot of isolation. There's a lot of loneliness in business, especially for men. And I don't think that needs to exist. I think that if you're willing to kind of be a little bit vulnerable, you don't have to experience that I'm going to be successful over here in business and make millions of dollars or whatever it is the goal is, but then my family's going to suffer. You can do both successfully. And it's not that complicated. There's really some simple things you can do to make it possible, especially on the Christian side of things. So that's what motivates me. That's what gives me passion for what I do.
I love it. I love it. That's amazing. That's amazing. So tell me something. This is going to be kind of left field. As a mission oriented, mission vision oriented business owner, what kind of challenges have you had? Just in getting Blue Shirt up to where you have it now.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I wrote the book that's now titled Right Now Leadership. And I originally wrote it with a different name it was called Sage Leadership. And Sage is also a company that's a big monster company that does accounting software. And I'm not going to badmouth them. I'm going to mention the name of them, but I'm not going to badmouth them. They basically said to me that I'm infringing on them and creating market confusion. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't do what you do. And they're like, yes, you do. And then I said, no, I don't. And back and forth for like 9 months over email. And then finally they're like, well, we can go to court if you want. So I talked to my lawyer, and my lawyer says, well, that'd be $50,000. So you'll probably win, but it's going to be $50,000. I said, no, thank you. So the thing was, at that time, super stressful for me because the brand was rocking and rolling. 10% of my clients were just passive. They would come in from my website. They would become my client, like easy. It was like, if you just scheduled a discover call with me and you just found me by searching for me, they became a client. I mean, can you imagine 10% of your clients are just automatic and you don't do anything for it? That was wonderful. Well, they took that. Well, let's say it this way. Once I rebranded, that went away. Right. So that really hurt. Losing 10% of free clients sucks. Right. So then I had to change my mindset and my attitude about all that and be like, well, it doesn't matter that I can't go back. I have to go forward. And so I went to B.L.U. As a result, I switched over to B.L.U. This was about a year and 2 months ago, right? So I'm still in the middle of getting the brand moving forward again, because I was 4.5 years into the Sage brand at that point. So I really had a brand going. So that was tough. I could talk about COVID. COVID crashed me. 75% of my business went away. And then I went through a kind of a woe is me period. Like, oh man, you suck. Your business is not going to work out. That kind of attitude. And again, it was a mindset issue. And I pivoted after 3 months of woe is me. I pivoted and said, you know what? It's up to you, dude. You got to fix this. And so I got the most of that business back and then grew my business 41% that year. So that kind of stuff sucks, but I'll tell you what, I learned a ton in each of those experiences, right? It's not failure, it's feedback.
I bet. That's amazing. I love that. Tell me something. So, someone wants to work with you. I know you've got a few different ways to do that. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, two primary ways. One is one-to-one coaching, which is that 12-week program that I've mentioned. I call it the Leadership Advantage. That's a fantastic way to break through whatever limitations you have, motivation issues, struggles you have with business growth, employee, whatever. We'll get through whatever blocks are going on there, remove them, and then create goals that will move you forward, right? So that's the one-to-one. And then I'm developing a mastermind right now for men of faith in business. So that's a 12-month program where I walk the whole group through a 6-phase process that basically we do a leadership audit, build the accountability, we do a business systems audit as well. We create the growth, empower the team, and then help the guys to live on mission. Because most of us have a mission, whether we know it or not. We have a mission somewhere in there, somewhere. And in this mastermind, we're going to discover that mission and then make sure by the time the guy is done, but preferably before the 12 months, they're on mission and they're living it out fully and having the success at home and in the business. So those are the two primary programs that I'm running. But I have a bunch of courses and all kinds of other free stuff that I provide to people that want to connect with me.
Awesome. Is there a particular stage, like in business growth, that is going to be more that would be more attracted to you, or that you're better positioned to serve?
Yeah, typically people that have, or businesses that have 5 to 25 employees, more is fine as well, but typically 5 to 25 employees, that they're in a place of stagnation. Their businesses, they may have good revenue, but they're kind of stagnated, and it's likely due to a block that's going on with the leader of the business. And so those are a great fit for me. I can help them really quickly to generate some revenue fast. My clients typically see a 10 to 30% increase in revenue within the time frame that we work together. So,
wow. And then you have your book as well.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And we can get that pretty much anywhere.
Yep. All the places. I don't have it on Audible yet. I haven't read it or paid someone to read it. I need to do that.
Yeah, do that, man. Do that. That'll be awesome. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yep. Go to blueshirtcoaching.com and just schedule a time to talk to me. I'm not there to have a conversation to pitch you. That's not what that Discover call is about. It's about discovering you and I, like learning about one another, creating that relationship. So that's a great way for people to connect with me, just directly on the website.
Awesome. And you're on Instagram and Facebook and social? Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, Kyle, thank you so much. I enjoyed our conversation. I really appreciate it. I'm feeling good about my mindset right now. So
Awesome.
We'll have to connect again soon, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Absolutely. And folks, thanks for watching or listening to another episode of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. We'll see you next time.